I'm joined by Chairman Ryan to get the latest on Trade Promotion Authority, the fast-track bill. First of all, what are the chances you all could vote on it actually this week, and where do you think the vote stands right now?
I think we're doing very well. We're adding votes by the day. All the undecided types are typically falling in our category for yes. We haven't made a decision yet whether to go this week or next week, so that's just a decision that we still have yet to make. Many of the people haven't come into town yet. Our first votes of the week are tonight at 6:30, so we haven't had our members come into town yet, so we don't make those decisions until after we've had our conference, which would be tomorrow morning.
If you decide not to do it this week, would that be a reflection that maybe you don't have the votes yet?
No, it wouldn't be a reflection. It'd just be a reflection of our preference on timing, given other circumstances of what's going on around here. And from our perspective, we feel confident about our vote counts, but we need the Democrats to produce some as well. We have to make sure that they've shored up their vote count.
And what's your vote count right now? How
I'm
many do they need to produce?
We don't. Our goal is we don't go into vote counts and things like that, specifics. We feel that we're heading in the right direction. We're very, very close. And it's going our way because more people realize trade is necessary. Look, this is the reason we're doing this, Peter, is because it's good for the country. It's good for jobs. It's good for the economy. It's good for getting people high-paying jobs. And as people realize that, I think they decide that this is the right thing to do. And this Trade Promotion Authority is much different than all other earlier versions in that it puts more accountability and more transparency on the administration, and it's Congress putting more constrictions on the power of the administration with respect to negotiating trade agreements, and it gives Congress the final say-so, the final veto power over any trade agreement. And once members realize the specifics and the transparency that's involved in this, they're moving from undecided to yes, and that's what we want to continue working on this week.
There's still a long list of congressional Democrats who say no to this deal. The president's working on them. I want to ask you about the Republicans who are still holding out at this point. Some of them seem convinced simply they don't want to give this president a victory on anything, whether it's trade or something else.
Well, I think there's a perception that the president will abuse the rules like he does on everything else. But we wrote this so much in a different way so that the president really can't abuse the rules, so that there's more transparency, so that we can see the text that's being negotiated. The country gets to see what these trade agreements are all about. And Congress says what the parameters are. Congress says what needs to be in a trade agreement and, more importantly, what cannot be in a trade agreement. And Congress reserves the final power to decide whether or not we enter into a trade agreement with another country or not. And so those are the kinds of things that people want to hear about. Those are the details they want to see. And as they familiarize themselves with those details, we're doing very well with our members because we as Republicans want to do trade. We need to open up markets for our products so we can sell things abroad to create faster economic growth. The economy's slow, wages are flat. Trade helps fix that.
What are the consequences if the president doesn't get fast-track trade authority? What's the real consequence?
We don't get trade agreements.
Economy?
We will not get the TPP agreement. We will not get trade agreements. And if we don't get TPP, say in the next session, or TPA in the next session, that means we will have gone 12 years without negotiating a new trade agreement for our country. That means at the dawn of the 21st century, other nations, be it China or Europe, those countries will go around the world writing the rule book for their global economy instead of America and our allies. It'd be a travesty if we allowed that to happen. So I think the consequences of not getting trade at the dawn of the 21st century, at a moment when the global economy is being formed, I think people understand those consequences as they sort of appreciate the consequences. It makes the petty political issues of the day pale in comparison.
But you understand and appreciate that there are a lot of Americans out there who look at these trade deals and they've seen the past winners and losers, and they're going to be left
that's
in
right.
the loser
So that's why what we're trying to do is get different kinds of trade agreements. We want other countries to come to our standards. We want other countries to play by our rules, to raise their standards to our standards, so we have fair trade that is free trade. That's the kind of trade agreements we're getting. So let me just say it this way, Peter. You add up all the countries that we have trade agreements with, we have a manufacturing surplus. You add up all the countries we do not have trade agreements with, we have a massive deficit. So the goal here is to get trade agreements with other countries so that they treat us like we treat them and we can have fair trade, which means we can have more jobs.
Is Nancy Pelosi going to decide this outcome?
I don't think she's going to decide this outcome, but I believe she's still undecided on this issue. And so it'd be great to see her support it. Look, this is something that the president's more agreeing with our position on an issue, and I understand that that's difficult for Democrats.
All right. One issue where you still disagree with this president is the health care law. The president was defending it today. We know that in the next couple of days, the Supreme Court will render a decision on King versus Burwell, the subsidy case involving Obamacare. You said back in March that you've got a roadmap, an alternative that'll be ready to go. Is that alternative?
We do have an alternative. I don't think it's going to be the next couple of days. It's probably going to be more in the next couple of weeks. But yes, we will have a Republican alternative to deal with this so that so that people who are caught in the crossfire of this unconstitutional law, should the court determine that it's unconstitutional, have a way to go. And we'll have a lot more about that later.
The president said today, listen, it's time to move on. This thing's working.
I totally disagree.
All right, let me ask you one other thing before I let you go. Tax reform. Again, another area where people talked about Paul Ryan and this president could actually work together. Mitch McConnell seemed to throw some cold water on the notion of tax reform in this Congress, these comprehensive tax reform.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Are you still confident in a limited tax reform opportunity?
We can't get comprehensive tax reform because that requires lowering tax rates across the board, which is what we see as tax reform. The president won't do that. So that is, to me, more of a 2017 project in the post-Obama era. The question is, can we take a couple of steps in the right direction, particularly with international tax laws and international tax rules, which ours are really anti-competitive? Can we do some things to fix that so we can make American businesses more competitive, fix that problem where we have companies inverting, foreign companies buying U.S. companies? We've got an effort at the OECD to perhaps try and tax U.S. income. So there are some quick issues that need addressing that perhaps there's a chance to find common ground on that. But that would be what I would call an incremental step toward comprehensive tax reform. But comprehensive tax reform with this president, it's just not there. So that's why we think it's more of a 2017 thing.
International tax reform.
Yeah, and there's some other things. We have expiring provisions that need to be dealt with for the sake of certainty in the economy, and we want to deal with those as well. So we have a more circumscribed appetite for what can and should be done in this Congress, not to mention highway financing, which is a component. But as far as comprehensive tax reform, the president wants higher tax rates on people. We want lower tax rates on people. Those are pretty different positions.